Hello and welcome to Dig It. I'm Peter Brown and hosting the show with me today is Chris Day. Hi Chris.
Hi Peter.
Wow, the sun's shining, Chris.
It is, and it's August.
It certainly is. Summer is here.
Thank goodness. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it, Peter?
Definitely. Too long, but
Yeah.
I'm happy today. I
Indeed.
think it's barbecue season now.
Most definitely, yes. I actually, driving around yesterday, I did smell one or two out there, so yeah, the
Excellent.
weekend was good for
That's
that.
good.
Yeah.
So what's going on at the moment then, Chris? What shows can we go and have a look
Yeah,
at?
it's a busy old season, Peter, actually. Which started actually in July but goes through to the 4th of August. It's
Right.
over at RHS Hyde Hall. They have their flower show.
Yeah.
And I was there last weekend, actually.
Okay, what's it
and
like?
Very nice, yeah. First visit, and I gave it a big thumbs up. Plenty to see. It's a very dry garden, obviously it's in lovely rural Essex.
Okay.
And the sun was shining, but yeah, very dry, very different to RHS Wisley. But if you're wanting some ideas for if you've got a dry garden, if you're lucky to have a garden which free drains, it's a garden to get lots of ideas from.
Brilliant.
But they have a big flower show, and already they were setting up the small little marquees for all the exhibitors there. So that happens. It's happening now till the 4th of August, and lots of plant specialist nurseries there, and obviously plenty of shopping for you to be getting on with at the show there.
Okay. And what sort of gardens do they have there, Chris? Are they formal ones? Or?
Yeah, there's a real mixture piece. It's a mixture of sort of demonstration gardens, so you can sort of cottage gardens. There is some quite modernistic ones.
Yeah.
And then I noticed there was a few themed. So there was like a woodland garden, a winter garden. So if you go there during the winter months, I'm sure you'd enjoy a lot of lovely sort of winter shrubs and bulbs. But no, a real mix, and that's the great thing. It appeals to everyone, I think. There.
Brilliant. Good stuff. I'll have to go and have a look at that then next time I'm down that way.
Definitely worth a visit, I would say. And then let's have a look at some of the other shows, Peter. So the 2nd and 3rd of August, it's the Taunton Flower Show.
Right.
Said to be the oldest flower show in the country, no less.
Right.
And again, that's a real mixture of, obviously, floral displays, designer gardens, obviously plenty of entertainment and music. A real, family sort of event, which is local to that part of Somerset. And then going a little bit further afield, the 3rd to the 11th of August, we've got the Singapore Garden Festival in Suntec in Singapore. So a bit international now.
I bet they've got some good orchid displays over there, haven't they?
I suspect so.
That's
yeah.
where orchids are
Indeed.
predominantly sort of bred, aren't they?
They are.
They do some amazing research on orchids out there. That'd be...
And it's got designer gardens, balcony gardens, obviously in that part of the world where gardens space is very limited. Of course, they love their rooftop and balcony gardens. So, yeah, it's a big event. It happens every 2 years. So, if you're in that part of the world, worth a
look,
visit.
yeah.
And just a reminder, we're coming up to obviously the early part of August. We've still got the big butterfly count on, Peter. So if you've still not done it, there's still time until.
Well, I don't think I can. Last weekend I was at Williamson Park and I went to the butterfly house there.
Oh,
and there were loads of butterflies, but I don't think they count, do they?
I think you're getting ramp up the numbers. It's interesting though. One thing I've noticed, there is generally a lack of butterflies around though in our gardens. I've seen a few. Obviously cabbage whites. You have to see a few of those. But no, even when I was at...
But even then, I haven't seen quite so many flying around this year as normal, so obviously the wet spring didn't help them.
Most definitely, yeah. So a little bit disappointed there. And then the next, again, really nice show. A few years ago I went to the Shrewsbury Flower Show. That's on the 9th and 10th of August. Obviously famous in the quarry marquee there, and the beautiful Dingle Gardens. It's a really nice place and well known for its... great outdoor arena entertainment, so show jumping, display bikes, the right mix.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really, really good.
Not just a flower show.
Not just a flower show.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, and then the following weekend, 15th to the 18th, we've got the Southport Flower Show, which celebrates its 100th year this year. So a big event for the Southport Flower Show. I'm hoping to try and get down there this year. Because it's a garden show close to my heart. It was quite an important one when I was growing up. I always used to go there.
It's up your way, isn't it?
It is, yes. So I'd like to try and get there this year if I can for a day or two. And then the following, so actually running on the 16th to the 18th of August, it's the RHS garden show at Rosemoor. So this is the one down in beautiful Devon. So again, a lovely good old demonstration gardens, and of course you've got the wonderful specialist plant nurseries there. And then finally, as we come to the end of August, the 30th of August into next month, into September, we've got BBC Gardeners World Autumn Fair, the new one at Audley End House Gardens. So that's another one to look forward to if you like the Gardeners World type show. So
this is the Gardeners World on tour, isn't it?
Yes, so this is the one which I think started a couple of years ago, and it seems to be going from strength to strength. Yeah, so again, it's full of, and it's a fantastic setting. Audley End obviously is well known for its walled garden there, but I mean I think they do a lot of sort of music and pop concerts there now, so it's become quite a place to go, a bit of a mecca for people to enjoy. All sorts of entertainment, but a gardening show towards the end of August sounds good, doesn't it?
Definitely,
so, yeah. And as I say, but we're talking about these shows far and wide, Peter, but obviously don't forget there's obviously many gardens in the National Garden Scheme.
I was going to say that coming back from Lancaster, we saw quite a few open garden signs up there. It's nice to see the garden scheme up there is still working well and doing good things.
And if you can support those, then obviously you're supporting, obviously major charities, and obviously get good afternoon tea there as well, which is one of the reasons I enjoy doing
Always where you should go, isn't it?
Yeah, good incentive, a good carrot.
That's it. Right, so what's in the news then, Chris?
Right, Peter, lots to talk about actually. And the first thing I thought would be quite nice to talk about a YouTube video which basically documented the cloud garden at the RHS Urban Show. That was the one a couple of months ago back over in Manchester. It was the first show, and it basically shows how in a limited space how you obviously create a garden, but it was produced really well, nicely documented, really good production. It's about 20 minutes long, but a real good watch. I really enjoyed it. It's really fascinating to see what happens to the garden after the show as well.
Okay,
you see it.
So does it grow or do they dismantle it?
They dismantle and then reassemble, I think.
Okay,
yes. So,
that's good.
But yes, so it was all developed through the garden was called Cloudscape, and it was basically a collaboration with quite a few people. But it's just good to see that often at Chelsea they say, it's going to be moved on, and you never see head or tail of it after it's had its obviously premiere.
Yeah, or they often get broken up and it's scattered around the country.
Indeed.
So that they don't stay as a whole garden, they're just pieces of a garden.
That's correct.
But this is a whole garden gets from it, and that's good.
Yes, and it's free to watch obviously on YouTube. We'll pop the link on the show notes there.
So the Cloud Garden. Look for that.
Yeah. It's good. And we're talking about bees. Trees for bees at Wakehurst. We've mentioned Wakehurst Palace, just next door to Kew. They've got this new citizen science project where they're trying to get visitors to Wakehurst to do a bit of recording, download an app and record any bees they see in the gardens, which I think is it's a unique sort of process, and obviously they can build up a picture of bee activity over the next few months. So
they're looking for where they're feeding, are they?
Where they're feeding, which sort of trees they're going to, and actual data, because obviously data is probably a little bit thin on the ground, maybe in some of these larger gardens, perhaps.
We do Lee's bee, I think it's called Lee's Bees, his honey, and he does specific honeys from specific plants and trees. I mean, certainly the ivy honey, which ivy's obviously a winter flowering.
Of course,
plant.
late autumn, winter.
That makes a really interesting flavoured honey. I'm not sure I particularly think it's the best one, but
it's a bit unique.
It is very unique, and whenever you see honey from a horse chestnut, that's really, really dark. Whereas, so almost sort of dark brown. Not quite black, but not far off.
Goodness me.
And you look at it and you're like, doesn't look good, but that tastes quite nice. And I think silver birch honey is one of the nicest, lightest ones.
Right.
But that's, again, lots of different honeys are coloured by the trees that the bees have been feeding on. And I know in my garden, every spring, when the bees start coming out, you always see them all over the laurel leaves eating. I don't know what they're eating off the surfaces. Maybe it's the waxy
coating,
sort of coating or something off the leaves. But you see them feeding on the laurel, and I was like, interesting. But
it is.
So if you're into bees and you're near Wakehurst, maybe go along and have find out some more information about it.
Download the app. And I mean it's been running basically from March this year and right through till September. So it's a long-term sort of project.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting.
And obviously in the news, the garden centre news, there's obviously discussions that Frost. We have obviously a Frost Garden Centre just down the road from us.
A couple of our local competitors. Mr. Frost, he's got a bit old and sold off all his garden. Well, he's selling off all his garden centres now. He sold the 3 of them off a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Knockcuts and Webbs, I think, were they?
The one down in Oxford and what have you. But now he's
Yeah.
selling the last 2 potentially to Mr. Roper.
Yes, and Blue Diamond.
Blue Diamond are going to get them.
Yeah, so it's interesting times, isn't it? I mean, on the press release it says, whilst these discussions are continuing, neither party is making any further comments. So I suppose it's watch this space, isn't it, on these sort of things? I'm sure.
That's it. I think if Blue Diamond offer them enough money, they'll
sure,
sell. That's my thoughts on it.
Indeed, but, they're going into capable hands though, which is
that's
good to hear.
That's good.
Yeah, and we were talking about obviously we had a big plant show a couple of months ago over in Stoneleigh, the National Plant Show, which is obviously important for the garden trade.
Yep.
And they announced a new winning houseplant in the form of a cyclamen. So these cyclamen, I have a problem with them, Peter. I don't like them. They're
right.
So these are basically upward-facing cyclamen flowers. So instead of them
instead of being down,
they're looking at you. They
okay.
The variety is called Illusia. It's a Dutch bred variety, and I think again on the press release it says that sometimes your breeding eye sees something special. Well, I don't know. Personal effect, but I mean it did look very different, and probably for that reason, if it's different, it's probably going to win an award. But I don't know.
They look quite, from the picture you've got here, they're quite big flowers, aren't they? They are nice. And I think they. Well, I'll wait till I see one in the flesh before I pass verdicts.
Indeed, I mean, I did have a look at it, and I thought, I suspect it's going to be a bit one of those good old Marmite plants, which we're quite familiar with in the gardening world. But I'm sure we'll see that in the next few months, starting to come into garden centres. We've already had one of these type in the garden centre here, and I think it sold very well. So who am I to?
We shouldn't question it. Yeah,
we shouldn't at all. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder, don't they say? So
indeed they do. Yeah, that's it.
And a little bit more on how climate change is having an impact. So there's a £500,000 project to create green solutions to tackle climate change up in Scotland. So, as we know, climate change is affecting all parts of the planet now, and they're doing this big old project now to look at basically flooding and all the other aspects which are affecting parts of the garden. And obviously, flash flooding, of course, is a big problem, isn't it, in a lot of our towns and cities now. And obviously finding the right plants and the right processes of planting to absorb all that moisture from the ground, not relying on tarmac and drains, but actually using the plant material is good there. So we're going to obviously they're working on that. They're working with across Edinburgh, the Doik and botanical gardens. So it's across a lot of botanical and main gardens in Scotland. This is going to be carried out. So hopefully, green technology will prevail as far as getting over this as well. But
good stuff.
And another news story which was quite interesting, that plant names honouring women have been publicised following a social media inquiry into them. So I think this is trial by social media. Say, how many plants have actually been named after ladies, and of course there's quite a number now, and the I mean the numbers are quite good. I mean
I should imagine roses are named definitely after a lot of fair ladies.
Indeed. But I mean, it's always been seen perhaps as the plant breeders generally have been male, so maybe that's had a slight from there. But obviously, so in the 271 years that plant names introduced, I think the number is 175. It's million.
1,753,728.
28 from
16,000 genre.
Yeah.
Celebrated women either directly or indirectly.
That's a huge number, isn't it? Yeah.
It's
quite
a few.
Yeah,
definitely.
It is. Yeah. And at 78, the UK had the highest number of names of the 56 countries covered. So that's good to hear, isn't it? Yeah,
brilliant.
For us, yes, yeah. And the photograph they show is obviously a popular houseplant, the Fittonia, which is a plant we sell a lot of. Wonderful bottle garden plant, and it's one I know. I think Manos mentioned in his when we were talking about bottle garden plants a few months ago.
I love the sort of contrast in the colours. You get the red veins and you get the white veins and the deep greens, and they are a lovely, sort of nice little house plant, aren't they?
They are really good, yeah. So I think that's a very positive story to...
Out of social media.
Indeed, yes. So, hurrah for social media.
Not often we can say that, but anyway.
Indeed. And obviously, time has gone past, Peter, but obviously we had the big Taunton Flower Show last month, which obviously created a few things there. But there's some really good gardening shows there. I mean, the BBC had a little bit of coverage, which I watched, which looked very good, actually. But Tatton is one of those garden shows, like we were talking, is going to go on the move. So, so we enjoyed that. But they produced some really good displays there. One which won the People's Choice. Was the my name's Dodie Garden, so obviously named after a tribute to the Scottish rugby player, international player, Dodie Weir, which obviously we've heard quite a bit over the last few years, haven't we, with the motor neuron disease and obviously So, but that really was a lovely garden. So I thought I might mention to that, but it was a really well thought through, colour themed, punchy, practical garden, which obviously people using wheel assistance and wheelchairs and things is quite important in a lot of garden spaces now, isn't it? Well done and lots of new, younger designers. And this is the only show, actually, Peter, of all the RHS shows where they can really shine and make a difference as well. So quite a few, and that was obviously one of the gardens from one of the younger garden designers too. So. Watch this space again for garden designers. Yes,
interesting.
And keeping up in Scotland, the headline: Scots gardener wins award for Moby Dick inspired hedge. I mean,
this is brilliant. I love a good hedge that's got some.
It's great.
Do we call it topiary or sculpture?
I would use topiary, but. In a way, it's a bit more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very amusing sort of hedge to have. I think it's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
So certainly, if you can get online, have a look.
Yeah, we'll have a link on that. So basically, David House and his wife, they moved into this from Yorkshire, and 50 years ago, and they planted a hedge to keep out the local wildlife. And then they found that the hedging started to resemble a fish, so they decided then to obviously implement a little bit of snipping and a bit of Edward Scissorhands type action, and it wins an award.
What sort of hedge is it, Chris? Do we know?
Yeah, I was trying to work out. It looks, I think on the description it doesn't actually say. I would have thought it's either yew or...
I was going to say, it looks a bit like a yew, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does indeed. The leaves there, but
quite a nice tight sort of compact hedge, and very fun to see. He's got a whale and a fish and a self-portrait and a duck, and
the self-portrait is a bit strange, and a lovely entrance to the stone
it's
cottage.
A good arch, isn't it? Yeah, a lovely looking cottage overall, isn't it?
Yes.
But I think it's one that they've obviously spent quite a lot of time.
Yes, indeed.
Nurturing.
Yes, I think you have to hand it to people with their vision, because they're visionary. It's almost like it's a living. You say it's a living sculpture, isn't it? I think topiary is a bit derisory in a way. It is a living sculpture they've created.
Without a doubt. Yeah, it's a lot of work as well, I should imagine, over the years.
Indeed. And on the area of planting things, the charity, the Woodland Trust, obviously our charity of the year at the garden centre here, they put a plea to stop planting rhododendrons. So this is this issue we have with...
because they're banning them in Wales, aren't they, in some parts of Wales?
Yes.
And they do take over in some places.
They do. They just tend to grow rather well. So they've basically spent... I mean, this is a colossal figure, isn't it, Peter? £360,000 over the past year on invasive plant control.
Right.
I mean, that's a huge amount of money. That. But obviously, as we probably know with rhododendrons, even if you cut them back or if they get fire damage, of course they resurrect themselves. Either the heat from the fire basically starts the seeds off again. So if you go back to that same area within 10 years, it'll be back to
rhododendrons. Yeah.
So it's a real problem there. And of course, the other concern is as well that there's a disease called one of the Phytophthora type diseases.
Right.
Obviously, is rife as well. So if you've got the rhododendrons, they could be a perfect breeding source for that disease to spread into more decorative plants you might have in your garden as well. So there's a so as they say, it's choking the native woodland. So let's not encourage any more planting of it.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a mind of its own, but great to see they're doing a lot of work on it. But at a cost, I think that's the thing. Yeah. And talking about native vegetation, so some more research from the Netherlands this time on the fact that native vegetation does not have an impact on insect biodiversity in small urban gardens. So that's now suggesting that we need more diversity of not necessarily all non-natives, but a good mixture of other plants as well, which I think, if I remember right, that's something the RHS has been suggesting anyway we should be doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they've got some facts and figures there. And the strategy is to plant a wider range of species. So if you want a few native plants, that's fine, but keep your options open and plant as many different flowers, different forms, different flowering seasons as you can to keep our wildlife and our pollinators and bees happy.
And fed, I think that if there's a good... Well, in one of our previous podcasts with Andrew, he was saying about the ladybirds and the fact that although there are now imported ladybirds into the country,
yes,
just having the big diversity of options for them all to feed on, they all do well, they all help eat the aphids, and off we go. It's sort of having lots of diversity and not having monocultures and just single types of plants. So
we need to do that. And I think certainly I think at the garden centre here we always try, and when we do our displays, we try and have a rich seam of different species together in the display. 3 or 4 is all you need, but within a garden, of course, you're going to be planting in a smaller garden as well. You want to plant as much difference as to extend your season to make your garden more attractive through the whole of the year. So,
but that's it. I saw a flower bed yesterday that was Crocosmia just coming into flower at the moment, and Crocosmia I love. It's one of my favourite plants.
Lovely colour.
But the bed had lots of leucanthemums sort of flowering in it beforehand. Yeah. And I think it's good to have just big rafts of colour. You can still have diversity, but have it flowering in different times of the year, and have, if you want a big block of colour, it's possible to do it, but just make sure you've got lots of different things flowering in big blocks if you've got the space, or mix it all up and off you go. It doesn't really matter, does it?
No, definitely. I think that is true. And likewise, we talk about bulbs and doing Alisania and plantings and layered plantings. That's one of the best ways. Maybe not this year because everything flowered at the same time. But if you can, bring that display to last 45, 60 days, which is possible if you choose, your little iris right at the beginning of the year, and your crocus, and then you work right through your tulips and hyacinths and your alliums. That's very achievable, even in a small space, isn't it? And that keeps you.
And I think it also, if you've got multiple plants in the same bed or in the same pot, it saves you having to sort of have bland patches of just leaf. You've got colour all year round, and that's what I love about gardening. I mean, this morning I came past, probably courtesy of Bull Colegrave in Northampton, the bedding displays. They now have these tower... massive. They're quite big, so a square metre on the base, and it goes up in sort of pyramid type shape, and just full of yellow and red petunias sort of overflowing out of the baskets and looking amazing. And I think it's great that bedding plants have now come back into the town centres and are able to cope with the longer watering conditions that the town councils can give them, and it's just nice to have colour in the town, isn't it?
It is, and I suppose a year like this year is a real test for a bedding plant. If if it can tolerate the amount of moisture we've had, and obviously the cooler nights and such like, and if those, it all passes the test, then if it performs well. But certainly Bold Coldgrape, I was at their trials a couple of weeks ago, and I think 2 days before it, we had a real deluge of rain. You wouldn't have known the plants had recovered so well.
Wow!
So that's the breeding, and that really is what it's about now, isn't it? To build in, the global warming is one thing, but actually building resilience to recover from extremes of weather, and they're doing that really well, and that's only good for them. For us gardeners, then we're getting a better plant which will withstand those extremes of conditions.
Brilliant, good stuff. And our next article, back up to Scotland.
Indeed. So I'm sure we're all familiar, Peter, with bromeliads. Those wonderful
the pineapple plants.
That's
aren't
it.
they?
Yeah. So
the ones with the lovely red flowers.
Yeah, red, orange sometimes. Yeah, and there's one that's the urn plant which has a pink flower, which is, I think, one of the most stunning houseplants you can buy.
I know.
The urn plant.
Spiky leaves, but it's a lovely pink flower.
Yeah, so basically going back to 2013, the Royal Botanics Kew gave a Pulla alpestris, which is a hardier form of bromeliad, to the gardens over at Logan up in Scotland.
Right.
And actually, just over 10 years' time, it decided to flower.
Wow.
And it is, as they say, it's a once in a lifetime. So it produces these wonderful sapphire sort of flower tower of colour. And it doesn't last very long, unfortunately. But I'm sure if you had a look online, you'd see some of the photos.
I wonder if they've got one of those time-lapse
It'd be good,
videos
wouldn't
on
it?
it.
Yes.
But by all accounts, it lasts a couple of weeks. So if you're up in Scotland near Logan in the next few weeks and you fancy a look at a very rare flower.
Yeah, the flower spike will probably last quite some time. Knowing what bromeliads are like, they're quite long-lived flowers, although the flower finishes, the stalk usually stays there for some time.
Yep.
And in the wild, this particular plant would be pollinated by hummingbirds, so it's got a very specific...
It's not going to get very well pollinated up there.
Not in Logan.
Not with a paintbrush.
Indeed. But it's great to hear that, isn't it? That obviously the weather condition, and you've got to be very patient. 10 years to wait for a plant to produce a flower which is going to last for 2 weeks is dedication, isn't it? But
that's brilliant. They must have looked after it well in the last
10 years. Yes, and lots of good old TLC over that time as well. Yeah,
good stuff.
And another news from the gardening trade, which again I'm quite into, Peter, is Whetman Pink. So these are the company who do a lot of breeding of pinks and carnations, which we sell a lot of at the garden centre here.
Yep.
Obviously garden pinks are really good. They've been hybridised now, so they repeat flower. They're changing hands, basically. They're being taken over by a German company called Selector One, which is a company which operates worldwide, so it'll probably give the company a lot more airing to other parts of the world. And they produce some amazing flowering pinks over the time. I've got quite a few in my own garden, but they are so good because they just...
The dianthus
dianthus.
So what I know them as. The foliage always... I like the foliage, and then, like you say, you get the lovely, pretty little flowers, aren't they?
A lot of them are very nicely scented. They all have typically like a clove scent, which is good. And of course they flower for such a long time, and they don't mind. In Buckingham Clay in this area, they're okay, provided you put a little bit of grit in there. And if you grow them in pots, I tend to grow mine in pots, and they look amazing. And because they're sometimes flowering at different times, you can just move the plots around when they're doing their thing, and they look great.
Not just available in pink, are they?
No.
You get whites and reds.
And some are short, some are tall.
Yeah.
Some have got single flowers, some are double. Or very highly marked, very, very useful plant to have, and it's good that
hopefully they'll come forward with even more varieties for us in the future. Then that'd be good.
That's it, and hopefully the appeal will be more worldwide as well. Let's get these, because obviously it's a massive success story for the UK now. Let's export it out to the rest of the world. Yeah, and so another sort of news story again about plants which unfortunately are being removed from the landscape by poachers. So we've talked about this before. So so basically, it's this war against succulent plants this time. So cacti and succulents being taken from the wild.
Succulents being stolen, are they?
Yeah, almost to order, you know.
Right.
So, I mean, we've had these stories over the last few years with things like snowdrops, which obviously are very, very expensive. The galathophytes, well, this is now on a lot of succulent plants. So, and that's why it's very important when you're buying your plants that plants have a plant passport, so you can trace where it's from. These poachers, though, are obviously ruthless and don't care about where they're removing them from. So, I
find it interesting they're called poachers rather than thieves. They're stealing. They're stealing.
Yeah,
I suppose
poachers.
Poachers, I think of as animal thieves.
Yeah.
They shoot animals,
whereas
these chaps are stealing the plants to sell on. So, interesting. But anyway,
so be aware of that as well. Yes, and we talked about this a little bit a couple of years ago, Peter, on the podcast about the National Trust and the viaduct across Manchester.
Yes, yeah.
Well, it looks like it's getting some.
Is it finished?
Well, it's getting new proposals on building on its success. So this is the next stage of the National Trust development of this amazing structure. So this is basically an old Victorian, like a viaduct across the city of Manchester, which would have obviously carried a train. And
once upon a time, whereas now it's sort of pedestrians and cyclists, I think, isn't it?
That's it, yes. And now they're looking at to make it a proper walkway filled with really good, rich diversification of plants again. So we're back to that word.
Okay.
So that's really exciting. So they're going to. I think the National Trust has revealed plans which will feature to give visitors full access to the viaduct's 330 metres from next year. So you can have a whole walk along there, which is great news, isn't it? And it's such an unusual project for the National Trust in a way. You tend to think of sort of Tudor houses and topiary, and this is quite a different kettle of fish, really, isn't it?
Yeah, because they get the Water Aid Gardens moving there as well?
Yes,
from
indeed.
The Chelsea Flower Show.
That's right, yes.
Another interesting feature to go and have a look at if you're up that way.
Yeah, so it's a real success story there.
Cool.
And then a few little stories quickly, Peter, on people in the news. Dr Olivia Chapple has been bestowed an OBE as the charity founder of Horatio's Gardens. So this is this was in the King's birthday honours list. So with her husband, she created the first garden back in 2012 as an outdoor space, and since then it's gone from strength to strength. So her work has now been duly noted and a major award. Yeah, so
good for
obviously
her.
Horatio Gardens are sort of instrumental now in providing those wonderful outdoor spaces for children. And then, of course, another milestone. We're talking about orchids. The famous orchid family over down in Burnham, down in Devon. They've reached celebrating their 75th anniversary this year. So it's Sarah Ritterhausen.
Okay.
And it's interesting, Peter. Many years ago, in my previous life, I worked on amateur gardening. Sarah's mother was our contributor to an orchid column every 4 weeks. Okay. So I spoke to her quite a number of times, which obviously I would have found some knowledge on orchids, but so it continues. Her daughter's taken over now as well. So good luck to them, and of course they're always been really good performers at the flower shows as well. So.
Well, they got 20 gold medals from Chelsea, so
pretty good.
Pretty good, definitely. That's it.
And obviously promoting the amazing amounts of work they're doing on the breeding side of things as well. So that's for that as well. And a little bit of news as well. So Dr. John Grimshaw has been appointed to the editor-in-chief of the Botanical magazine. So this is so these are big high-brow magazines on gardening and horticulture.
Yeah.
But I do follow him on social media. He's always going to amazing gardens, so he has a lot of passion to promote horticulture. So
brilliant.
So this journal has been going since 1787. So what a mantra to take over! So it's one of probably the oldest publications in the UK. So good there. And Chris Collins, our very own Chris Collins.
What's Chris been up to?
So obviously he works on rights for Amateur Gardening magazine, but and obviously he's the ambassador for the Gardens Organics, and of course former Blue Peter gardener no less.
Yeah.
But he's been recognised as the fellow of the Chartered Institute of Horticulture, and he's got conferred the fellowship of the City and Girls Institute. So well done to
congratulations.
Yeah, but again, he's doing a lot of work at the moment with schools. He's I've been again following him on the socials, and he's out and about whilst the schools were very busy in the spring. So was Chris.
Yeah. Well, he's a really interesting chap. I mean, certainly if you've not heard it, have a flick through the old podcasts and have a listen to him, because he's definitely a very
he's been
entertaining gentleman.
Certainly, yes, and that's good stuff as well. Again, a bit more garden trade news, Peter. So the National Garden gifting scheme has been rebranded. So
okay.
So obviously we're all familiar with the garden scheme with the
Well, I can remember a fair few years ago when it went from cards into plastic cards, and then it moved into recycled plastic cards, and now what's it going to now? Is it going to an app? And
it's the technology is moving on, I think, as well. So as you say, they've discontinued now the paper vouchers from 2023, and so they've changed its name. Basically, it's going to be called the National Garden Gift Card.
Okay.
So it's got card rather than voucher or whatever derivative we used to use there. So, and they're going to be obviously available online as well. So, which is going to obviously attract the appeal. But
perfect for presents. I always think if you know someone who's into gardening, and you want to give them a card that can be used pretty much anywhere.
Yes, indeed. HTM members.
Then give them a gift card. It's a great little present, and
people say, "Oh, it's a bit of a get out," but actually, if you're a gardener, you know what you like, and to be honest with you, you don't know what plants people have, isn't it? So
you always need a bag of compost or a bag of fertiliser, and ultimately you can use it for that, even if you don't want to buy any more plants for your garden. You always need something, don't you?
You do, indeed. Great gift idea, and I mean, they were saying that how important they are now, and the fact it's the gift card market is probably pretty competitive, isn't it? You don't have to stand in the queue at the supermarket to see how many are out there. So the fact we're doing, and the new branding looks really, really smart. So look out for that when you go to your local garden centre or garden centre nursery. And we mentioned this like a couple of months ago, Peter. The Natural History Museum have got this amazing garden. Well, it was opened a couple of weeks ago,
right?
And it had a lot of coverage on the TV. In fact, I think BBC Breakfast did a whole part of their programme from it. And I thought it was really good. I mean, basically they were saying you can walk around. The garden has a timeline, so you work through the prehistoric.
They've done it
that way,
sort of from the very oldest to the sort of more the
newer,
the more recent plants.
Yes,
that's good. Okay,
and of course there's there's the much loved material you'd expect. So there's obviously a few dinosaurs in there as well.
A few skeletons in the gardens are there, so that's good.
Fun. And it's free as well. I mean, I know the Natural Museum is free anyway, but you can walk around that independently of going into
going inside. So maybe a nice sunny day.
Yeah,
have a
school
look
holidays
outside of the Natural History Museum.
Yeah.
Very good.
And I think there's going to be lots of photo opportunities as well if you like doing selfies with dinosaurs. Well, ex-dinosaurs. Then I think it might be good as well. But it's they've created basically the Darwin Centre, which is part of the garden, has its own natural nature history garden as well. So very educational for everybody who goes there. And it brings in the whole area of reptiles and birds and mammals as well as going back to the
all the lovely
Jurassic
plants.
period.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Worth looking out for. And it's been 2 years in the process of building this, and I think they've obviously done a good job in that time. Yeah. And a couple of rose stories.
Right.
Yep. So roses cure now increasing their collection of species roses, which of course we're probably familiar with, certainly the garden centre here for hedging species anyway, the rosary goes to time. So they're basically creating a new garden devoted to species roses. So if you're into those, then obviously Royal Botanic Kew Gardens is the place to go to. And of course it was also announced the Rose of the Year for 2025.
Right.
Which is called You're My Everything. So this was developed for, well, it's going to be in garden centres. I think we're going to be stocking it in the autumn, and you'll probably find most garden centres will have it next year. So it's bred by Keith Jones from CK Jones, so UK breeder.
Yep.
And it was very nice, actually. I saw it a few weeks ago, and it's a nice rose, got a nice bit of fragrance to it as well.
Okay, so, brilliant.
And obviously they have to meet certain criteria as Rose of the Year, so hopefully it'll be a bit different. It's got a nice sort of coloration to it too as well. So frilly pink petals with a yellow base and a nice bright yellow stamens in the middle. So nice and bright and cheerful, and compact growing as well. So perfect for pots too. So yeah, as the title of the article says, this rose has everything. So,
definitely, it's a good name. I like that.
Yeah, indeed.
That's good.
And as we're recording, Peter, we've obviously got the Olympic Games.
Yes. French are hosting the Olympics at the moment, aren't
they are, yes. And they're making a bit of a song and dance about dahlias. So there's Olympic dahlias have been bred for the show as well, which have been planted out around all the open spaces. In fact, it says the planting started in April by the city's gardening team.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's going to be across all of Paris. The Champs-Élysées, Trocadero Centre, and of course a lot of the other venues used for the Paris Games. So
dahlias are a lovely green flower, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I guess, have they done them in the Olympic colours?
Well, that's it. I was looking at the colours there. They're doing well. I don't know. They've got three. The varieties. They've got a variety called Copper Boy, and the detail actually is a little bit thin on the ground, to be honest with you, but the one Soul Man sounds quite good. That's
a black.
Crimson black with ruffled pink to its heart, reflecting the hardness of the Paris dahlias. After Dark, which is a water lily variety, rich crimson. So these are all quite dark, quite dramatic colours, aren't they? So they should be. Yeah.
They should be in flower by now, shouldn't they? If they were planted in April, so they should be good.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully.
So
setting off well in the past.
Yeah. So hopefully the TV cameras will pick those up.
We'll have to have a look for them.
Yeah, indeed. But a really good way to promote, a particular flower, isn't it? And obviously they're certainly back on trend now. So so 50,000. Yeah, 50,000 of them were planted. So just a few.
Wow.
Yeah. And another little snippet from Kew as well. So a number of UK community groups have received £2,000 from Kew Gardens. So these are 26 groups, part of the Grow Wild, which is Kew's support programme for transforming urban spaces. So again, it's one of these initiatives which is great. So if you want to find out a little bit more about that, we'll put the link on there. But it's good. They have lots of applications for the little projects. And in a small way, these are helping to create some nice big ideas locally.
So I guess that brings us, Chris, on to top 5. Now, I was really interested to hear what you proposed to sort of what we're going to have as our top 5 this month, and it's really good. It's sort of about that time of the year when start thinking about making jams and preserves, don't you?
Yeah, maybe
strawberries have been doing well this year. My raspberries have done quite well.
I think. Oh, good. Good.
Well, brambles or blackberries.
They're coming on well. Yes,
they are amazing. I had my first crop of blackberries.
That's nice and early.
Last week before I went up to Lancaster, and
wow.
When they just start going the right colour, and you're like, am I going to get a sour one or not? And every now and again you do. But my trick's always, if they fall off the plant, I think, that'll be fine to eat.
Yeah,
but if they when you pull them and they stick, then they're not quite there yet. But
that's great.
Looking forward to getting back on them in a bit.
Yeah, I've got some brambles, blackberries outside my house, somewhere where I park my car up, and they're they're in full flower this year. I've never seen so much flowers on them. So there are
it's a good year for brambles this year.
Yes.
Or blackberries.
Yes, indeed. So,
give them their proper name. They're not just wild plants that we've got growing untethered in.
So this month's top 5 on Dig It is looking at, as we're in the season of green teas, I thought it'd be quite nice to pick out maybe 5 of the top preserves we sell.
Okay.
And I've got a choice of 3, so I don't know what you think, Peter, on which we discussed.
Okay, what's the options?
So we've got Mrs. Bridges.
Yeah.
And that's their preserves. Across the board with preserves and marmalades and such like. And then we've got top preserves from Mrs. Bridges, and we've got Cottage Delight. So Cottage Delight produce these wonderful sort of taster.
They're little mini pots.
Yeah, and I thought that was quite an interesting one maybe to focus on, because this is where people do trial things, probably with the prospect of buying them in a bigger version if they like the product. So,
let's have those then, Chris. What's in the top 5 of them?
So number 5, tomato and ginger chutney.
Right.
Number 4, caramelised onion chutney.
Yeah.
And then on number 3, sweet apple chutney.
Okay, I've not tried that one. Sounds nice.
Now the next one is really interesting. The number 2, real ale Yorkshire chutney.
Okay, I've not tried that one either.
And then number 1, our classic lemon curd.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Mostly savoury, and
mostly
then the lemon curd. Because lemon curd is a classic.
It is,
sort of curd.
It is, yes, it is. It's the one to go to, isn't it?
It is, and I've never been a great fan of it, but a nice lemon curd can be amazing on a tart. Yeah. It's lovely.
And if people are interested in the top ones of the other preserves, I mean, interestingly, none of the major jams were there. It was things like marmalade and stem ginger and ginger preserve. So we obviously have got a taste for something a little bit different, haven't we?
Definitely. Good stuff. That's really interesting. Well, I guess we'll have to go and get some cheese and try some of these chutneys out then, Chris.
Sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, definitely the real ale, the Yorkshire chutney
one. Yeah,
sounds very interesting.
Not even seen it. I'm going to go and have a look for that one. Yeah, excellent. So, what jobs have you got for us, Chris? Just watering if the sun's out?
I was going to say, watering, feeding, they're the priority things, isn't it? And remember, make sure you do your watering top or tail of the day. And obviously, make sure you water your plants before you feed them. That goes without saying, doesn't it? Make sure your soil is nice and damp around your plants if you give them a feed.
Well, am I doing something else wrong, Chris? Normally, I took up Jekka's idea of feeding on Fridays.
Yes, feeding Friday.
But if the plants haven't been watered for a couple of days before and they're a bit dried out, should I first give them water and then give them some? Yeah,
the rationale is if you feed a very dry plant, it can create a thing called exosmosis, where it actually pulls out moisture from the plant.
Oh, right.
So it can be quite, I mean, generally there's enough moisture content in your soil, even though the soil might look a bit dry, there's moisture around the roots. But you do have, so if your soil is excessively dry, I would say, give it a bit of a water beforehand.
Okay.
And then follow on with it, which is a bit of a pain, isn't it? It's another job.
But when you put the second water in with the fertiliser, that doesn't get sort of diluted too much?
No, it shouldn't do. No.
Okay.
Because obviously your moisture capacity in your soil is going to be that little bit higher, and hopefully that'll help the roots then to absorb the fertiliser more efficiently, because there's going to be more moisture around the roots.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's the regime to work to. But the most important thing is to be feeding, really, as well, isn't it? And the usual thing, high nitrogen feed, something like Miracle-Gro, great. So if you want some nice leafy growth on some plants which have stalled of flowering now, maybe your hanging baskets are looking a little bit tired, give them a bit of nitrogen, that will encourage them some more leaves, and therefore after leaves come flowers. So a bit of a change of diet there. And obviously your tomato based feeds, your high potash feeds for everything else, and everything else is going to be basically anything fruiting or producing a decent crop. I think tidying up at this time of year, Peter, as well, isn't it? A lot of clearing of materials, plants finish flowering, so a bit of a tidy up to allow air and light to get to the plants. Things like geraniums, a bit of hardy geraniums in my garden looking a bit messy, so get the secateurs or get the shears, trim them back. You might get an extra flush of flower a little bit later on, but it gets rid of all the foliage, and that might cut down disease potential as well, which is good. And likewise, your lavender. It's been a reasonable season for lavender despite the weather.
Ones around us are sort of in full flower at the moment. It's doing really well. The bumblebees do love a lavender, don't they?
Yeah. And the temptation is to leave. Unless you're going to actually harvest and treat the lavender as a crop, if you like. And but if you obviously, a bit of a deadheading is not a bad thing to encourage a bit of structure to your plants, especially if your plants are a few years old. That would be good there as well. Staking perennials, it's a bit of a job, but again, if you've got things producing lots of new shoots, another flush of lupins or delphiniums now, make sure they've got some, because they're putting a secondary bit of growth on too, which is good. And your wisteria, I was going to prune my wisteria the other day.
They've finished flowering now, haven't they?
Well, yeah,
or is this year a bit unusual again?
I got a variety called Amethyst Falls, which is one of these repeat flowering ones, and I was going to trim mine back, and then I saw some flower spikes appearing, so I'm going to have to wait probably another 2 or 3 weeks until they've finished to go in there. But if you've got lots of whippy growth on your wisteria, which generally happens, take them back to 3 or 4 leaf joints from the main stem. That's the general thing, and that'll help stimulate the plants as well. In the vegetable garden, good time to plant leeks if you've not already planted them. So it's quite late. And obviously, keep an eye out for blight on your potatoes and tomatoes. There's not much you can do, but a bit of fleece over the top. This summer so far, we've not had any high humidity. That could obviously change if we get a period of extreme heat, and then obviously thunderstorms. So maybe a little bit of fleece over the plants in those sort of conditions might help. But of course, there's nothing we can recommend to spray these days. So a bit of the lap of the gods really on those as well. Tomatoes, just keep
regular watering, isn't it, to stop them splitting?
Yes, that's and blossom end rot as well. And again keeping those fed. And obviously, mine, I'm getting to the point now I'm going to take a few of the leaves off the bottom just to get a little bit of light into the ones as well. So far, this year my tomatoes I think is as good as last year. So they've caught up a little bit with the weather. But do that as well. Look out for seed potatoes for Christmas. They're in the shops now.
Yeah, that time of year when you want to plant them up for Christmas.
For Christmas, So, get yourself some nice, decent-sized pots. 1 or 2 tubers to a pot. Put a little bit of compost in the bottom. Put the tuber in. Cover the tops, and then as the plants start to grow, then just basically add more compost as the plants progressively grow up the pot. And keep them nice, well watered. A bit of tomato feed on those once you into sort of the end of this month into September to keep them going. That should be good as well. Herbs, your herb garden might need a bit of a trim back, and good time to sow a few herbs too. A bit of basil, borage and such like. They would probably benefit, and some dill. You could get those sown as well if you want to extend your season for next year.
Now, I went away obviously last week, and I left. My neighbour very kindly waters my plants for me, but I try not to give her too many to water. So all the herbs that were growing in the kitchen, I just put outside, and it didn't rain all week. So I came back and they're all
flagging,
looking very, very dry. So I gave them all some water, but the mint I've got has got really leggy. When you get a plant that's so distressed, is it better to just water it and get it back in the state it was in, or would it be a good opportunity to cut all of that leggy growth out and then it can sprout from the bottom and sort of turn into a nice mint plant again?
I would say it's the perfect. It's the best excuse, isn't it? It wouldn't be any time. And then,
because I was thinking, presumably the mint has less work to do then to try and sort of get itself back into life. But mint is generally one of those plants that I can actually manage to do well with, because it doesn't need much care, does it?
It doesn't really. At the end of the day, it wants to grow, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's pre-grown. But so I give it a bit of feed as well. A bit of Miracle-Gro high nitrogen to get those leaves in place. That would be that would be good as well.
So and then we're back on the mojitos. Would be all right.
Fruit trees. I mean, July, August, good time. It's timely advice to if you've got any trained espaliers. We did our espaliers at the garden centre here a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Good training session with the team to get them how to do that. So, reduce them down to some nice short spurs, so you get plenty of fruits on for next year. And your fruit trees in containers, or if you've got any soft fruit in pots, make sure they're given a good feed now. Your blueberries, you probably picked your blueberries now, but continue the feed, your ericaceous feed, right through to the end of September to give the plants a good opportunity to build some nice growth for next year as well. That would be good. If you potted any strawberries up into pots, they can then go into you can make new strawberry beds now, I suppose.
Okay, yeah,
as well. And then, of course, doing a little bit of general. I mean, I'm growing a few chrysanthemums this year in pots, Peter. So repotting those into bigger pots,
right?
Moving things on if you've got the time and the space, and if they're struggling in the pot, if we do get warm weather, just put them into the next size pot.
Yep.
And that'll save, and you'll get some better quality growth. The plants won't get too stressed as well, which would be good as well. Your bulbs in the garden, your dahlias, your gladioli. Obviously, they probably need a little bit of staking too now. Deadheading, I suppose.
Yep.
Yeah, certainly your dahlias, keep them regularly deadheaded.
Because that encourages them to flower more, doesn't it?
It does indeed, yeah, very much so. And again, if they're getting a bit tall, make sure you've got a nice strong stake in there, because they can topple over, especially if they're carrying quite a lot of weight at the top of the plant too. And I mean, if you're into your harvesting, if you got things like nasturtiums and runner bean flowers and things, remember they add a bit of colour to your salads. So I'm gonna try a few runner bean flowers on our salads this week, because they're good as well. Obviously nasturtiums are good on that side. As it's school holidays, I suppose, maybe do some quick crops on the windowsill. Some mustard and cress, some of your.
It's always a good one for the children.
It's a good opportunity, because they'll germinate so quickly. In the winter we struggle with low light levels. Well, this will be something they'll get within a couple of weeks of sowing, and anything else in that sort of series of plants as well. And keep picking your stock. Keep picking your flowers and things. Maybe do a few things for the house too.
Yep.
Obviously, talking to our good friend Jessica over at the Buckingham Flower Farm. I mean, continuity is the thing. So use your garden as a bit of a florist area at this time of year. If you've got things coming into flower, the odd few roses. If there's plenty of them, you're not going to miss a few. In the garden, to enjoy them. Bring those into your house and enjoy those at that time as well. As far as wildlife is concerned, catch those earwigs. They are around. So an upturned pot on a cane with a bit of straw or a bit of shredded newspaper is a great way of catching them. And dare I say, keep on with the slug control as well.
Yeah, there's masses of slugs this year, aren't there?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's been a bad season, isn't it? But when we do get some hot weather, they will disappear. But they're only disappearing to get out of the sun, and often a lot of them bury themselves into the soil. So if you're doing a little bit of on your allotments and things, if you're doing a bit of hoeing or whatever, that's a really good way of exposing them during the sunshine and controlling that way as well. And of course, if you've got issues with box, whether it's caterpillar or blight, keep on with your treatments. Don't give up with those, because it is worth it. Certainly the blight can be prevented. So work on that as well. So plenty to be doing, Peter, I think.
Excellent. Well, that'll keep me busy in between the sunbathing and the barbecues.
The barbecues, good. It's got to have a good barbecue. Yes, that's really essential.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, what's our next show then, Chris?
So we're going to be chatting to David Andrews.
Okay.
So David Andrews is an amazing chap. He knows an awful lot about roses, so we're going to revisit roses. Yeah. And he's also a bit of a social media star as well.
Okay.
Quite, shall I say, in later years of life, he's reimagined himself as a bit of a gardening guru. So I'm sure we'll have a bit of a chat about his escapades in the world of social media.
Brilliant. Sounds great. Can't wait.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Chris.
Today's show was brought to you by Buckingham Garden Centre and Nurseries. The show was hosted by Chris Day and Peter Brown. The show was produced by Peter Brown. And our thanks to Chiltern Music Therapy for providing the music. Thanks for listening.
At Chiltern Music Therapy, we want everyone to know the difference that music can make in their lives. From parents and their premature babies in hospital to grandparents with dementia. We provide music therapy and community music services to people of all ages and needs across England. We work both digitally and in person in people's homes, care homes, schools, hospitals and hospices. Find out more at chilternmusictherapy.co.uk.